Today's guest is somebody who reminds people that running doesn't have to have a specific body type, a look, or a stereotype to fit in order to become and consider yourself a runner. If you follow the Clydesdale runner, you'll see a runner who shows up consistently, puts in the hard work, and does it without trying to fit into what the running culture usually tells us a runner should look like or how a runner should be. His presence quietly challenges assumptions, not through loud messaging, but through his lived examples. His journey is about building confidence over time, earning belief through consistency, and carving out space in a sport that doesn't always make room for everybody. I'm excited to talk about how running has reshaped his identity, what it means to show up when you don't see yourself reflected around you, and also what running at your own pace looks like when the narrative wasn't built for you. So without further ado, let me welcome in Chad. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks. I'm happy to be on and love the introduction. That was great.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. How are you doing?
Good. Hanging in there. We're finally starting to have the teeth of winter come and chew at us a little bit here in central Pennsylvania. We got a little snow this past weekend. We got a heavy storm coming up this upcoming weekend and some frigid temps. So right now it's definitely it's gritty out there.
I'm in Jersey, and I was unaware that there was going to be a storm this weekend. I thought we were past the worst of it over this last couple of days. Great, wonderful. So I'm not looking forward to that at all. But I know that from us talking beforehand that you prefer going out there in that weather unless it's like absolutely abysmal and like dangerous. So I'm looking forward to discussing kind of how you get out there in those moments when a lot of people would rather look out the window, see what the weather is, and then sit back on the couch. When you first started running, did you feel that there was that this sport, that there was a space that you naturally belonged in, or did you feel like it was one that you had to grow into?
So when I first started running, it was all the way back in 24. And since then, there have been kind of some ebbs and flows of my participation in the running space. Back in 2014, I never really focused on what was around me or like the online running community. I feel like hadn't really blown up at that point. And so I wasn't really focused as much on like wanting to fit in or feeling like I should fit in or things like that. When I first started running, I did it. My wife and I started together as a means to start to get healthier. We were getting ready to settle down a little bit, start a family and do some stuff. And we wanted to get a little healthier. I was significantly overweight and I had been overweight my whole life. So we got to a point where we're like, all right, let's take our health seriously. So we started at a new gym and then I got invited by my best friend to go run 5K in Columbus, Ohio for the NHL All-Star game in 2015. And I was like, all right, I guess I'll start running. I had no interest in it at that point, but I'm like, yeah, it's NHL All-Star game. There's a 5K. I'll go and run that. Not knowing how long a 5K was because I was so kind of new in the space. And then sure enough, I started running. And when I started running, I could run a quarter mile before I had to stop. And then slowly but surely over the next I think I had about 3 months before the 5K. Eventually I got to the point where I could run the whole 5K. And I basically say training for that and then doing that race got me absolutely hooked on running. And at that point, it was like, all right, what's next? Okay, 10K a few months later, did a 10K, did another 10K. Then, all right, half marathon in September. So what comes after a half marathon? Well, a full marathon. Mm-hmm. So I went from first 5K to first marathon in 15 months. Now, in that interim, I had also dropped about 120 pounds. So I went from, I was around 340 when I first started running down to about 220. So it was a pretty drastic, and my wife dropped a whole lot of weight and we were living kind of our best life. But even then, like I still didn't have like that traditional runner's build. And even way back then when I was running my first marathon, I really just wasn't focused on it because I was really focused on just doing it for my health. Mm-hmm. Then obviously life has its way of popping up and throwing in roadblocks. I developed ITBS, iliotibial band syndrome, while training for the marathon and actually couldn't run the last 6 weeks before my first marathon, which was in Paris in 2016.
Oh my goodness.
Couldn't run. Then I couldn't run for about 6 months after the fact. It was so bad. Then I finally start getting back, and then my wife gets pregnant with our oldest. And then all of a sudden I've kind of lost my running partner, my running buddy. So my motivation starts to wane. Then our oldest is born, and you'll find out with what you have coming on. Fitness basically took a back seat for a few
Hmm.
months. Slowly but surely, I started to get back into it until my oldest was 6 months old, and then I fell down the stairs, broke my fibula, tore my ankle apart, had to have a few surgeries to put my ankle back together.
Oh my God.
Wasn't even sure I would ever actually be able to run again with the extent of the damage, but luckily, about a year's worth of rehab, finally felt comfortable, like finally got back into the swing of things, started getting fit again. And then COVID hits, and that kind of throws a lot of people. When COVID hit, that was their motivation to get out and start getting fit.
Hmm.
Whereas ours, like all of a sudden our toddler is home with us full time, and
Mm.
now we're working from home, and now like gyms are closed, and so that kind of throws you for a loop. Things start to settle down. We're like, you know what? Yeah, we can have one more kid. We're in a good spot. We're in this new house. Like everything's great. Boom, get pregnant with twins. So, needless to say, eventually fitness took backseat again because we were getting about maybe 20 minutes of sleep a night. And slowly but surely, like my weight started to creep back up. I started to get unhealthy again, had really unhealthy habits, till all of a sudden our twins are about 14 months old at that point. And I went to go pick one of them up, and I absolutely just threw out my back. And I'm like, you know what? Enough's enough. I need to get back on track. So it was right then and there. Once my back started feeling better, I started doing some research on, all right, the first go round when I was buying running shoes, I would just go to the store and buy the cheapest ones and say, yeah, whatever, these are on sale. These are fine. Like these will work for me. Now that I was more established and had access to a little bit more money and was wanting to be a little more cognizant of the fact that I was a bigger runner and I had had this previous leg injury and the ITBS, I was like, I want to be smart about what I'm running in. So started doing research, and then all of a sudden I found this giant, some people call it shoe tube, or it's just the online running community, where there's just this plethora of information out there. And I'm like, wow, there's this huge community out there now that didn't seem to exist. This was in 2022, so it was like 8 years prior when I first got into running. It wasn't there. So then all of a sudden, when you have now all of a sudden there's this community of people, you start to see what's out there and see all the people and see everything like that. And then all of a sudden, and I don't know why it didn't happen the first go around, but I did start to notice that, hey, I'm not seeing a lot of people like me out there in the online running space. I know they're there because I'd seen them at races. I'm a back of the pack runner. I'd seen them in the back of the pack with me. So I know they're out there, but we just weren't at the forefront.
Yeah, a lot of your story I identify with because I started running too to get healthier. I was very overweight, and I was told by a doctor that I would have a heart attack or a stroke if I didn't take care of myself. And so that was a wake up call for me. Now, so I want to go back to when you first began, that you ran that first 5K for the All-Star game up until running this first marathon. Was there a moment, or was it at the beginning when you first started running, or was it at a certain point during your running journey when you began that you felt like you started to believe that you were a runner? Like, because when I started running, I didn't think of myself as a runner. I was just somebody trying to get fit.
Yeah, it took doing the race. Cuz like
The marathon or the 5K?
the 5K.
Okay.
Like and that's the thing, and at one point I had, you get that kind of, you find that balance, because I was still working out at the gym. I was lifting some weights. I was doing like various classes and stuff, and I did see myself more as someone like, hey, I'm getting into fitness. Running is just a part of it, but I'm not a
Hmm.
runner. I'm buying cheap shoes. I'm not dedicating myself to running. Once I crossed the finish line and the atmosphere of doing a race and everything, I'm like, okay, yeah, no, this is for me. Even at that point, I was still, I mean, I think by the time I ran the first 5K, I was still probably almost over 300 pounds.
Hmm.
But I was like getting fit, getting strong, getting healthier by the day. And I was like, this is something. I mean, at that point, I wasn't like, hey, this is going to be a big part of my identity like running is now. But I'm like, I can see calling myself a runner. And I've never hesitated. I know there are a lot of people out there who hesitate to do it because they run walk, or they don't do marathons, or I mean, I don't see why anyone who doesn't strap up shoes, get out there. If you run for any portion of the duration of time when you are out there getting in your fitness or your exercise, you're a runner. I really don't see the distinction. There is a lot of gatekeeping out there, unfortunately. With all the positives there are in the running community, a lot of times there is a lot of gatekeeping, and a lot of people are saying, oh, slower back of the pack runners, you're not going to benefit from carbon plated shoes, so don't wear them. Science shows that we may benefit, just like our 4% may not make us OTQ,
Yeah,
but that 4% might help us set a new PR that'll make us
exactly.
happy. I don't see why, just because we're not going to be elite athletes, that we shouldn't do those things. So
Exactly.
yeah, when it comes to the distinction of being a runner, I say you if you lace up the shoes and go, claim it.
Amen to that. I was actually looking at something online right before this, and it was a response that Herm gave to a post where someone was moaning about, they posted some screenshot of some, I think it was a finisher shirt from the Berlin Marathon this year. And they were like, hot take, but if you don't finish the marathon, you don't deserve to wear this. And people were like, well, first off, why does it bother you?
Yeah,
Like live your own life.
yeah,
And Herm was like, you know what? I respect anybody who wants to spend their money on anything they want, and I won't stop them. So yeah, the gatekeeping is insane. And you're right that there are a lot of positives in the running community. There's a lot of supportive people, a lot of, whether it's influencers or everyday runners or podcasts, what have you. But there's always those bad apples that come out that you're like, really, come on, we could do so much better than this. And it impacts your own confidence as a runner. And as you pointed out, it can impact those people that want to consider themselves runners because they run walk, or they don't run marathons. They run for fun. They run for health. They don't run for a race. Now, with your own confidence that you've gained over the last several years with running, what were some of the early wins that like helped build up that confidence for you?
I mean, early on, like I'm a very goal oriented person, and early on the goal was achieving a new distance, really, because obviously being new, I wasn't necessarily worried about pacing. It was more like, can I achieve this feat of going longer? And it's funny because I had that first year where or first year and a half or so where I was like all in, and I just went like further and further each time. And that was great. I accumulated the medals. That's awesome. But after Paris, really, I didn't have a long consistent stretch of running because everything I kept getting interrupted with all those various things we talked about before. But I have now consistently been running, I think, again, since August of 2022 is when I picked back up and started. So this is the longest stretch I have had of consistent fitness and running, and it all being kind of part of my life. And knock on wood, I've stayed relatively healthy, and other than the occasional niggle you get here and there along the way. So I think what builds confidence for me along the way is consistency, getting out there when I don't want to get out there, doing those runs where there are very few days when I don't want to get out there. There are some times where like I'm a little fatigued, or I've gone too hard, or it's the second day of a back to back, which I don't do often. I'm a lower volume, lower mileage runner, but yeah, I feel like the consistency is the thing that has helped me the most. And it's funny because what has come with the consistency are a lot of the things that a lot of would build confidence with other people, like a new PR or things
Mm-hmm.
like that. Those have come kind of hand in hand with the consistency, because by being consistent and doing the workouts when I need to do the workouts, doing the easy runs, doing my strength training, which I'm kind of like 50-50 right now, strength training, and I spend a lot of time in the gym as well. But so when I can be consistent, that is what builds my confidence, both in like running and day-to-day life. Because if I know I can show this consistency to something that is hard, like running, consistency and stuff, other stuff that's hard, like day-to-day life, parenting, work,
Mm-hmm.
things like that, if I can be consistent here, I can easily be consistent over here as well. And so it kind of it kind of helps in a lot of different aspects.
Oh yeah, run. I love how running permeates into every other part of our lives. When initially we all think we just, like you and I, we get into it because we want to get healthier and fitter and take care of our bodies. We don't realize what else it helps us with in our lives. I know you talked about the consistency being something that has really benefited you and something that's really been able to you've been able to build from the ground up. But has there been anything else that you used to doubt yourself about as a runner that you like? I don't want to say you no longer question, but you might not question it as much anymore.
Yeah, I would say when I was first getting back into running in 2022, and I started to do that look around of the online community and started to try and say, okay, I'm going to get back into running. Maybe I'll sign up for some races to help keep me motivated and things like that. I started to see a little bit of that online gatekeeping, which obviously had me doubting myself. Because at that point, I was back to close to my starting weight from the first go round. And so I was unhealthy again, unfit. I was trying to buy, this time I was actually trying to buy like running clothes as opposed to whatever I could get at TJ Maxx or Marshalls
Hmm.
and stuff like that. And I'm buying the stuff in the biggest sizes and it's coming and it's like, oh, this extra large fits like a medium and like normal clothes. Or so like a lot of that brand stuff where like you buy stuff and you're like, all right, this will fit, and then it's basically like I look like Winnie the Pooh wearing a crop top.
Yeah,
Well, and it doesn't help, I'm 6'3" too, but so yeah, so things like that. I mean, it seems innocuous to order, but like if you order from 4 different brands and order their biggest size shirts and none of them come anywhere close to fitting you and they're running specific brands, you're like, all right, yeah, that's a little disconcerting. And then
yeah,
for me, when I was trying to do my research into what shoes to buy, I'm a review guy. I read reviews. I ingest a lot of information. I watch video reviews, read online
yeah.
reviews
Me too.
before I buy anything. If I'm going to be spending 150, $200 on something, I always read reviews. So I was reading reviews, watching YouTube videos, and I saw that there was really no one out there that looked like me that wrote those reviews or did those reviews. So I'm like, all right, well, it seems hard for me to pick a shoe based on how someone who's 5'5", 135 pounds says the shoe works for them when I'm 6'3", 300 plus.
Mm.
So I realized that I had to take everything that I was reading online with a grain of salt, which was kind of discouraging, and actually kind of what led me to where I am now in the online running community. So it had its pros and cons, that sort of feeling of not being represented.
Yeah, no, I mean, then with the representation that you bring, though, I mean, you work with Believe in the Run, you do their, a lot of their reviews for a lot of their trail shoes and things like that. I know, and I think if I correct me if I'm wrong, your profile specifically says "big guy reviewer" for
Yeah.
Believe in the
Yeah.
Run.
So trails is new. Trails is a new thing for me. That is trails is a 2026 endeavor. And we can kind of get into how I got there eventually. But yeah, so trails is new. But yeah, I've been with Believe in the Run since November, I think, of 2022. So been with them for a while and I'm the lead big guy reviewer for it had been all road shoes up until just recently. Now I'm going to be doing both trail and roads.
I'm a huge fan of Believe in the Run. I want to hear about because I'm pretty sure you probably get at least some people who reach out to you, with messages about whether it's the reviews you give or the support that you provide to those individuals that might not feel like they belong within the running community for a number of reasons. We talked about the gatekeeping.
Yep.
What kind of messages do you get from people that when they resonate with your running journey?
I probably get a couple, at least 2 to 3 messages a week, and they range from, hey, I watched this YouTube video that you were in. I have a couple questions about that. I saw your post on Reddit, because I try and stay active in the Reddit forums as well, answering, because a lot of people go there first to ask questions.
Yeah.
And Ask Running Shoe Geeks even has like a sub Reddit tab of bigger runner. So I'll always go to those and answer questions. So I have people message me on Reddit. I have people message me on Instagram. I always go through, for every video I do on Believe in the Run, I go through every one of the comments and I either like or respond if it has a question, just to do that, just because I feel like I'm providing a service that was not there for me when I was either first getting into running or even the second time when I was
Yeah.
getting into running. It wasn't there. So I feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to kind of do that. It's part of what I am trying to cultivate is a big open welcome space where people have someone they can go to for these questions. So I probably get anywhere. Sometimes it's 3 messages, and they will all usually be very complimentary because either they've seen a video that I did, or they'll read my reviews and they'll have certain questions on shoes. And if someone comes to me, they're like, blank slate, like, I know you do reviews, I need a shoe recommendation. I basically sit and I chat with them for 10, 15 minutes, and I get all their specs and what sort of shoe they're looking for. Do they have any pronation issues? Do they have any width issues?
Hmm.
What sort of feel are they looking for in a shoe? And then I boil that down, and I usually come up with a couple options for them. And the only thing I ask in return is that if they go with one of my recommendations, after they've run in it for a little while, they come back and tell me how the recommendation went. That's the only caveat I have about giving out shoe recommendations, is because it's a little Monday morning quarterbacking for me to kind of see how my recommendations are helping people. So at the end of the day, the messages I get are all positive, and it's really affirming. The phrase I use is it's selfishly altruistic, because obviously I feel like I am providing this service that wasn't there before solely because it wasn't there for me, and it makes me feel good to do it. So it's like a little bit selfish, a little bit for me that I'm doing it, and in the grand scheme of things, I'm doing it for others to have that resource.
No, I love when people do some sort of service because they see that they did not receive it themselves and they put themselves in the shoes of the other person to be like, okay, if I were that other person, what would I want them to have? And especially now with what you do with Believe in the Runs for the last several years, it does come with a certain gravitas behind it now of, they can trust you and they know that you have the knowledge to be able to provide that to them. But how has being this visible changed how you show up? Whether it's with your training, with your races. I know we talked about you being online. Shout out to Running Shoe Geeks. I love that subreddit so much. I've
Yeah.
wasted so much money because of the deals I find
Yep.
on there.
Yeah. Yep.
But like, how has that changed how you show up in those different facets?
Well, doing the shoe reviews generally is an extra layer of motivation to get out there and run the miles, because getting anywhere between 2 to 3 shoes a month, depending on where we are in the release cycle. Like right now I have 3 shoes in that I need to get miles in to review.
Hmm.
Well, actually I have one dedicated trail, one road to trail gravel option, and then one road option.
Hmm.
So now all of a sudden in my head, I'm processing. I'm like, all right, how am I going to structure my run training so I can get in some gravel miles, some road miles, treadmill miles, because we got the weather coming up, but then also trail miles. So it's really motivating in the sense that especially now that I'm doing trail. When it was all road, it was a lot easier because I'm just like, all right, I'll run my 4 mile run in this shoe on Monday. I'll run my 6 mile run on Wednesday in this shoe. And then I know over a couple weeks, I'll have accumulated enough miles to write the reviews. Now I have to be a little smarter and plan a little bit more, but it definitely provides that extra motivation to get out and run the miles. Cause I know I have a responsibility, not only to the community that is relying on the information, but also to Believe in the Run, because they are facilitating me getting these shoes and I'm doing this for them. It's a quasi volunteer position. I don't receive a paycheck, but I receive more than enough compensation in the form of free pairs of shoes to run in, and obviously then it has a lot of other perks as well, the exposure being one of them.
Yes.
But yes, and then I also owe a responsibility to the brand, because they want honest feedback. They want feedback that actually comes from having run in the shoe and done all the miles, because it would be pretty circumspect and pretty negligent to run in a shoe for 3, 4, 5 miles and then say, hey, here's everything. Like, I don't mind doing like hey, here are some first thoughts on the shoe.
Mm-hmm.
But to write an actual good faith review of a shoe or do a video on it, I need to get at least 3 to 4 runs, 25 miles in a shoe. So sometimes it's a little less. Sometimes it's maybe 15 miles. if a shoe, more often than not, if a shoe does not work that well for me, it'll be around the 15-mile mark because I know very quickly in that a shoe is not working for me or causing issues. I've only had a few that have ever caused me some issues with some post-tib stuff. Or Achilles. But yeah, for the most part, there's just a lot of people kind of depending on you. So in addition to the self-motivation of wanting to stay healthy and get out there and train and prep for whatever races you have coming up, I have a responsibility to the online community, believe in the run and the brands.
I mean, and you do a fantastic job with the amount of people that are believe in you. I keep using these words that are choose, believe.
Yeah.
They
It sets
they
itself
trust
up.
you. They trust you. They trust you in what you're able to give them in both not just the understanding of what you know about the shoe, but also they know that even if they come to you with questions, you're not going to try to sell them anything. You're going to try to give them the best thing that would benefit them.
And in all the years I've been doing this now, I've not had one person come back after getting a recommendation from me or reading one of my reviews and coming back and saying that, hey, this shoe didn't work for me or I didn't like the shoe. I've had more people come back and say, okay, I love this shoe. Now I want to get a Tempo Day shoe. What should I do? Or, hey, this is great. I have now signed up for a half marathon and I want a specific shoe to run the half marathon in. What should I do? And a lot of times that's the first question I get asked is they're like, hey, I've been training and I've been running in X shoe for all my training miles, but I'd like to get something special to run the half marathon in or to add Tempo Day or to do this or to do that. So yeah, I've not had one person come back with any sort of negative reaction to a recommendation. So that's another feather I like to put in my cap.
That's awesome. So folks, you heard it here. If you need shoe advice, go to Chad.
Yeah. And I'd like to I've also had people who probably would not classify themselves as a bigger runner. Because here's the one thing. I will never place a label on anyone as to whether they're a bigger runner. That is a self-applied label. I will never, someone could come to me and say, hey, I'm 5'6", 150 pounds, and I consider myself a bigger runner. Okay, awesome. If that's how you identify, great. I will never put a label on anyone. That is self-applied. So, but I have had people who might not necessarily be anywhere close to where I am in terms of size come to me, and I'm more than happy to help anyone out with recommendations. I've had friends and family who aren't bigger runners as big as I am, and my recommendations have helped them out as well. So
it's great that you're a voice that can be able to share that sort of knowledge and information to other people who need it, because there's, as you pointed out, like you said, traditionally styled runners, because some of the reviews that I've seen from a variety of different people, I'll go and buy the shoe because I'll think it's great, and then I'll use it and I will run 3 runs in it, and then it'll just be sitting on my shoe rack because I'll just never use it again. Now, I want to go back to the training area, right? The portion of, whether it's training for your first 5K or when you're training for the Paris Marathon or any other race that you might have coming up. Running obviously is about mental toughness, right? And it's about patience, training for the long game. What has running taught you about patience, especially when progress is not fast and it's definitely not flashy at times?
Yeah, I feel like patience and consistency almost go hand in hand. A lot of people want to see those dramatic, immediate results. They want to go out and have a 4-mile run be easy, and then have the next 4-mile run be even easier. But I mean, progress is not linear. Whether it's progress, if you're on a weight loss journey, progress is not linear there. If you are on a journey to set new PRs in your races, progress is not linear. You go and you can have an absolutely killer day and run a fast half marathon, and then have another one scheduled later that year and have a bad day. So 1, progress isn't linear. And 2, I think the main way to see progress is to be consistent. And consistency in itself is, it almost props you up to be consistent, because if you make something a non-negotiable in your day and make it not to the point where it stress, I'm a little type A, and my wife will confirm that there are times where, like, if my schedule gets thrown out of whack and it's going to lead to me either missing a run or having to change my training plan, sometimes I'm a little too rigid,
Mhm.
and it can stress me out to say, well, no, I got to do this, I got to do that.
Yeah.
So there has to be a balance there, but obviously staying as consistent as you can, that will help. That will help you progress. That will help. I mean, that helps me mentally because um, I know that I can be a better father, a better husband, better employee, a better coworker if I am in the right state of mind. So for me, with the aspect of running and fitness being so positive, not just for my physical health, but my mental health, I know that I am putting myself in the best position to succeed on all of those fronts if I do the work and get that job done. So for me, that's where I see the most progress is by being consistent.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the progress is not linear, because I feel like a lot of people lose sight of that. I can't tell you the amount of times that I've had one good run and then I'll go the next day and try to run the same exact thing and it will feel like it's 200% times worse for some reason. And it's easy for us to compare ourselves to others when it in a variety of different areas with our running. When that comparison comes up, how are you able to stay grounded? You know, whether it's online or if it's in races, what have you.
Yeah. Well, and I maintain the old adage is so true that comparison is the thief of joy.
Hmm.
Um, and it's and the comparison trap is real. I mean, I fall into it all the time. I ran Chicago this past October, Chicago Marathon, my first major. I had the best training block I had for any race. I did not miss a run. I got all my strength training in. I was fit. I was healthy. Boros was telling me I could run a 4:20. My goal was around 4:30.
Hmm.
I had hit all the paces. I was around that on my 20-mile long run. I was around the pace for a 4:30 on a long run. So like that's how fit I was, and I had had a great training block over the summer and early fall, and I was like rip roaring ready to go. One of your prior guests, Hillary, and I, we had even talked about, because I knew her goal was to go sub 4:30 in that race. She had been at that barrier for so long and I think she had like 5 attempts where she just barely missed it. I'm like, hey, maybe we'll run together because I'm shooting around that time. We never ended up connecting on race day, and I'm glad I didn't, because she went out and ran a 4:15. It would have blown me out of the water. But I mean, you can't control the conditions. It was warm that day in Chicago. I had
Yeah, it
made the
was.
unfortunate decision to wear. I'd worn a long sleeve heat gear, like heat shirt, designed for the heat, to because I figured I could protect my arms, keep me cool because it was going to be really sunny.
Hmm.
All it did was like trap the heat in, so I started overheating real early. The paces felt so much harder because by the time I was running, it was almost 70 degrees already.
Yeah.
I think it started and it was around the low 60s, and then within an
Hmm.
hour it was almost in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then you get into the back half of that course and you're in the neighborhoods without skyscrapers, so you are just exposed to the sun.
Hmm.
And so I had a rough day out there. I had to stop at mile 14. I had a doctor cut the sleeves off my long sleeve shirt
Wow.
at like mile, because I was at the point where I was like, I'm gonna get to halfway and I might just drop because I'm not feeling good at all. But I saw an A10. I'm like, they're gonna have scissors there, like the scissors to
Mm.
cut bandages. I'm like, and so I walked in and I told the doctor, I'm like, you got to cut me. He's like, what? I'm like, I need you to cut my sleeves off. He's like, oh, okay. So like he took the scissors and he cut me down to like a sleeveless, and I felt better from then on. But I had burned up so much of my energy stores by being overheated and the
Yeah.
paces being harder. And I was still on pace for a PR, and I still could have, because 4:30 would have been like a 28-minute PR. So I was still on pace, but I had lost it at that point and couldn't really get it back. So I got home from Chicago, and I was just like, I was looking around at all the people that even in those conditions that had successful days. I mean, Connor Mantz friggin' set the
Yeah.
new US men's marathon record. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking around, and I know, and obviously I was over the moon for Hillary, who had struggled for so long to get over that 4:30 mark, and she blew it out of the water. And I was obviously kind of sitting there like, well, I missed my goal by like 40 minutes. Like, not just miss my goal, because my A goal was obviously around 4:30, and then I had like a B goal of 4:45, and then I had a C goal of a PR, which would have been sub 4:58, which I felt was easily in the bag. And then just finishing obviously is
Yes.
always the D goal. But I obviously started to compare, and I'm like, what went wrong? And I started going through, and I realized I had made the poor wardrobe choice, which I and it's funny because I had run when I did my 20 miler, the temperature wasn't significantly off from what I was running in Chicago, and I ran in that shirt because obviously nothing new on race day.
Yep.
But it was just there was something about that day that just didn't work out, and I actually, it took me a solid week or so to process and sort of grieve what I felt like I had lost, which was because I felt like I let a lot of people down. I had made it known what my goals were, and I had built up this thing in my head that was going to be a great achievement, and I fell woefully short. So I literally took my medal when I got home and I just put it on the counter, and it just sat there. Didn't hang it up on my medal hanger, didn't do anything with it, just didn't really revel in the fact that I had a lot of people like coming to me and saying, like, you finished a marathon, like you achieved something great. And I just couldn't see the forest or the trees. Like, it was just, I was so hyper focused on like the goals that I had missed. So it took me about a week to process, and then finally, slowly but surely, I started to come.
Yeah. Oh my God. I feel you on that. It took me,
Yeah.
I had made it a goal since I first started running marathons to break 4 hours. I was like, I don't care if it's 3:59. I just want to do it. And it took me 8 marathons to get to it. I remember crossing the finish line when I realized that had happened. And I just broke down into tears. I just started sobbing because of just what it represented. And huge shout out to Hillary on that, because she obliterated her goal, which I'm so proud of. And I look forward to what she's going to do in 2026, because she already has plans.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. She's like me. She always seems to thrive when she's got something on her calendar, and to keep her motivated. So yeah, so for me, my motivation comes from not only the community around me, but also I usually always have something in the works to kind of keep me out there.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way. If they always talk about the post marathon blues, and for me, it's always like, well, I don't have them for that long because I have 4 marathons.
I never get them because I always have something else to start. I'll take, and in fact, I think in the last a little over 3 years, maybe almost 3.5 years, I've taken 3 total weeks off running. One was after my second marathon, which was in February of 2024. I took a week off after. Then we as a family had gotten COVID sometime in early 2025. So I took a week off. Now, luckily, I didn't have anything scheduled. It didn't impact really anything. But so I took a week off then. And then I took a week off after Chicago to kind of like clear my head. And I felt physically, I felt okay. But just to kind of clear my head and clear the air, do my grieving process and move on. So yeah, those are the only 3 weeks where I have not run in basically since 2022, since August 2022. And that's the thing, is control the controllables. Can't control the weather. Unfortunately, I did not control the controllables because, I mean, my nutrition was on point. I was carbing up. I was doing this, doing that. But yeah, once the wardrobe, I blame the wardrobe decision, but unfortunately the wardrobe decision was mine. So,
well, so I did Berlin too last year, and that was,
I heard about that one.
That was probably, like, just because of the weather, was probably the worst marathon I've ever run. I remember calling my wife at mile 17 being like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I want to quit. I don't want to do this. And then I also remember it at the same time. I paid to come to Europe. I paid to run this race. I can't not finish, because then I'll have wasted my money.
Yep.
And my wife is also the kind of person who she's not afraid to tell me to shut the fuck up and keep going. So luckily I had that person, but no, the weather this year has just been obscenely hot all across the board, and it makes me furious.
Well, and I did the typical, it's funny. I've done the same thing after each one of the marathons, but for like a shorter duration. So after Paris, the first time, I'm like, all right, no more I've done one, no more marathons. Like, that's fine. After I ran Wilmington, North Carolina in February 2024, I had it was a very short period of, all right, now I've done, this is the marathon of my comeback. So like I came back to running, I ran another marathon. Okay, cool. I'll stick to the half distance.
Mm-hmm.
And that lasted maybe a couple weeks. And then all of a sudden I got the idea of, hey, maybe I'll run a major for charity. And then sure enough, after Chicago, and I think Chicago was a little bit more because I was somewhat disappointed in the performance. I said, "Oh, no more marathon." And that I think that lasted just a few days. That one was short because immediately thereafter, I'm like, "All right, what am I doing in 2026?"
Mm-hmm. So I want to jump now to, because we've talked about, a lot of these accomplishments that we've had as runners, as marathoners, to the person who is considering jumping into the sport, whether it's for fun or they want to start getting into races or things like that. There's a lot of intimidation that they can feel, whether it's about their body, about their pace, about their background. What would you want them to know before they decide to lace up for the first time?
I mean, I would like to think that slowly but surely the environment is going to get more and more welcoming, especially the more and more people we get in who, and that's not to say the community isn't very welcoming. I think a lot of people have that preemptive intimidation, fear of not being accepted. And that's just a natural human emotion because as humans we have a herd desire or a pack mentality. We want to be part of a pack, and obviously you want to be accepted. So I think a lot of people go in and worry more than they need to. But that's not to say it's not legitimate concern because obviously, as we also talked about, there is a fair share of gatekeeping. So jump in, both feet. We will, people like me, people like Herms, people like Hillary, we are going to be there to support you. We're going to be there. We're going to be a resource as best we can. There are just as many people out there who look like you, who run your paces. I mean, the back of the pack is the place to be. That's where you're going to find the support. That's where you're going to find people who are out there grinding. That's where you're going to find the people who are in this for the love of it. Because you know what? You're not going to go out and do something for 4, 5, 6 hours if you don't love it. So at the end of the day, we are out there because we love it. I'm out there doing what I do for the community because I love everyone in it. I personally have felt incredibly welcome, not just by everyone at Believe in the Run, but everyone else kind of in the online running community, whether it's Aubrey, who now goes by Bigger Than Running. He's a UK guy. He and I chat all the time. Kafuzi,
Mm-hmm.
Emily Heller, Runs Like Heller, like the Drew Whitcomb from Wear Testers and Arun from Wear Testers. Everyone's just been so welcoming, and they understand the role that I play in the community is just as important to the roles that they play in the online shoe community, and I've never doubted my belonging since getting in. I've never doubted my belonging in the space. Early on, obviously there was a little bit of imposter syndrome and things like that. I mean, and that's something I've suffered from my whole life. But no, at the end of the day, if you're someone who's looking to get in, just jump in with both feet. We will be here to support you. There are just as many people out there that will be that supportive force as there are the people who will be doubters or haters or people who might try and cut you down or tell you don't deserve to run in race day shoes, or hey, you're a back of the packer, just don't. No one's concerned about what you're doing. We will be here. We will support you. Find us. We'll be in the back of the pack with you. That's the thing is I have felt nothing but support since getting into the community, and I hope, and that's what I hope to be able to instill in others, a confidence to jump in, a confidence to do these things. I want them to see me going out and doing Chicago or going out and doing bigger races like I have planned in 2026 and say, I'm not sure if I can do it, but I'm going to go for it. Because there's only one way to find out whether you, I mean, I think, what is the phrase? Whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right. So
I've actually never heard of that. I love that. I've never heard of that quote before. That's awesome. Now, I want to ask you this because you call yourself the big guy reviewer, Believe in the Runs, and a lot of people come to you for advice. What's one misconception about larger runners that you wish people would let go of?
I mean, I think a misconception about bigger runners is a belonging sort of misconception. Not that we don't earn it, but like that us running a 4 to 5 hour marathon isn't as hard as someone going out and running their sub 3 hour marathons,
Mm.
because you know what, at the end of the day, we're spending twice as long as you on our feet. We're taking twice as many steps as you. Our body, we have more force going down on our joints than you do. I mean, there's a plethora of ways in which we are putting in just as much effort. Sure, we may not be racking up 80, 90, 100 mile weeks, but our 25 to 30 mile weeks may take just as much time as yours. They may take just as much effort for us to get out the door
Hmm.
and do those things. So in terms of the effort, and I mean, I anyone regardless of body type that goes out and puts them through the grind that is a marathon training block and gets to the start line, laces them up, and at least makes the attempt, has major props from me at any point, regardless of who you are.
Yeah.
I always have more of a soft spot in my heart for people who look like me, who go out and do it, because I know just how hard it is.
Yes. Yes. I agree with you 100%. We talked about someone who might be intimidated by, getting into running based off of a variety of different things. Is there a moment in your journey that you would want someone who is a hesitant new runner to hear about, that would make them want to get in or make them feel more comfortable about joining in on the sport?
Once you cross that first finish line, you're going to be hooked. I mean, find the right race, find something that's going to motivate you. If it's going to be running for a cause that's important to you to get you out the door and get you training, whether it's a marathon, a half marathon. If you are a Disney enthusiast, do a Disney race. My wife is a big proponent of doing Disney races now. She's done a few, and she's going to be doing one in April. Find something that motivates you, whether it's intrinsic to the race or whether it's for your health, and once you cross that first finish line, it's going to be game over. The feelings that you're going to have, whether your first finish line is a 5K, your first finish line is a 10K, whatever it is, if you once you do that, you will feel a new sense of pride that no one can take from you, and it won't go away. And if you're like me and crossing that first finish line was like, okay, what's next? And it doesn't have to be. It
Mm-hmm.
could be, hey, you know what? Like, I crossed that first 5K finish line. 5K is enough for me. I'm just going to keep doing 5Ks. Not everyone needs to run marathons. Not everyone needs to run
Yes.
half marathons or even 10Ks, 10 milers. I've basically run the gamut of distances from half marathon from 5K all the way to marathon, and 2026 will be beyond. But you don't have to. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, you can go on and be like, all right, I've done a first 5K. What's next? 10K. Okay, 10K is a perfect distance for me. I can do it comfortably. 10K is where I'm going to cap out. Fine.
Yeah.
Great. But crossing that finish line will be a moment that you need to soak in. You need to drink it in and just live on that.
Definitely. I mean, living on that feeling of, I remember I crossed my first finish line. I did a 5K actually for NAMI in 2019. It was my first race I ever done in my life. I'd never run before, in front of a large crowd of people. And it was unlike any feeling that I'd ever had in my life before. And you're right. You don't have to run marathons. You don't have to run half marathons. You don't have to run 10Ks. You don't have to run 5Ks. If you want to go out and run a mile, go out and run a mile. Like, there's so much pressure, I think, on people because of what they see online. Like, everybody's running marathons now. Everybody's doing these long distances. You don't have to do those.
Yeah.
You just go out there and have fun.
Completely. And you know what? Like, if you want to do it and put yourself out there, go for it. More power to you. You don't have to. If someone comes to me and says, hey, I don't consider myself a runner, I only run 5Ks. All right, well, first of all, you just said you run 5Ks, you're a runner. Like, let's hard stop. No.
Mm-hmm.
Second of all, major props to you going out and running 5Ks. Like, that's not, I mean, you are lapping everyone who's on the couch not running 5Ks. So think about it like that.
Amen to that.
And like I said, for me, I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy logging the mileage. I enjoy the training. I'm one of those sickos who actually enjoys the training. Race day is kind of the cherry on top of the sundae, but I enjoy the training. I enjoy the miles. It gives me that time to help clear my head and process things and be good for my mental and physical health. So the training is great. the race is kind of the cherry on top.
I mean, talking about this crossing the finish line and having this enthusiasm and excitement about running is something that, every runner, regardless of distance you run, needs to feel in some way, shape, or form during their running journeys. But for you, what keeps you excited about continuing your long run journey?
Well, and actually 2026 is going to be a new year for me because after Chicago and being a little bit let down, it was funny. I immediately got home, started to process, and I said, you know what? I had this amazing build. Earlier in the year, I had attempted to set a new half marathon PR, but it was on a rail trail and it rained the night before and the day of the race. So the gravel rail trail was just like slop.
Mm-hmm.
So I missed setting a new PR. I think my PR at the time was like 209 something. And so I got to the halfway point and I was like on PR pace, but just it was an out and back. So I had already known what I had run through. And I'm like, I just can't sustain this pace in the mud and all the water was like ankle deep in some areas on the rail trail. I'm like, I'm not going to do it. So took the back half and I'm just like, I'm just going to enjoy this nice, beautiful run. We were in Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, beautiful mountainous rail trail, great views. So I was like, I'll just enjoy the view and jogged it in. But so that was my spring attempt. And I'm like, you know what? I had the best training block I've ever had for a race. I'm going to capitalize on the fitness I built in the marathon build. Harrisburg half marathon was 4 weeks after Chicago. So I'm like, I can take a full week off. Mm-hmm. I decided to start shifting into doing some trail running around me. I'm going to be doing some trail reviews for the dirt division of Believe in the Run. And I decided, like, you know what better way to experience trails than by running some trail races. So I registered for my first 50K in May of 2026 in Northwest Philly. So yeah, and I'm going into that with zero expectation. It's almost like me going back to 2014 and 2015 when I first started running, where I have no expectations on myself other than to just go out and experience the run and finish. And that's my goal. And I'm running, I think as a training race for that, I'm running the Philadelphia Trail Half Marathon, which is in a different park in Philly. And yeah, so for me, 2026 is all about experiences as opposed to performance related goals. I have, knock on wood, I'm trying to potentially get into the New York City Marathon in November. Mm-hmm. We'll see. I do have a friend who's running that, and it's going to be her first marathon. She did the 9+1. So she's going to run that, and I have told her I will do my best to get into that so we could run it together. So yeah, and that will be us just going out. It's her first. It'll be me just going out and enjoying it and running it with her. So yeah, it's all about experiences in 2026.
I love that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the name of the game, right? You can chase times as much as you want, but as soon as it becomes so much of a pressure on top of like what you're trying to do, like it takes away from the fun. So going out there and just enjoying it is the best thing you could possibly.
And like I said, I'm a sicko who enjoys the training, so I'm going to still dedicate myself to the training as if I am training for a race, but each race day is going to just be treated like just another run.
Absolutely.
So JAR is the theme of 2026. It's just another run.
I love that.
And yeah, and who knows? I mean, I have somewhat fallen in love with the trails. My long runs, I've been doing most of my long runs on trails. I've done up to like 10 to 12 miles on trails in the last few weekends. And yeah, sort of fallen in love with it. So who knows? I mean, maybe after K, we start looking at different ultra distances.
50 miles and the 100Ks.
Yeah, we'll see. Goodness. I did once I started getting into the trails and the dirt division stuff. John Calabrese, one of the dirt division guy, he runs 100 milers every other weekend or something like that. His ultra sign up, if you look at his ultra sign up has like 75 different entries over the last couple years. Jeez. So he eats up miles on the week. So his first comment to me is like, all right, so what's your first 100 miler going to be? I'm like, oh, that would be years down the road. Maybe when the kids are a little 50K older. First. And yeah.
Hey everybody, before we get into our last segment, I wanted to take a quick moment to thank today's sponsor, and that is For the Run. For the Run is a running apparel company that creates really high quality shirts, hoodies, and everyday gear designed for runners who care about the why they run just as much as they care about how fast or how far they can go. Their clothing is comfortable, durable, and made to be worn on runs, to races, and in everyday life, all while carrying messages that celebrate mental health, community, and personal growth through running. If you're someone who believes running is about more than performance and likes wearing gear that reflects that mindset, For the Run is absolutely worth checking out. You can find them at forthe.run. And if you use the code FTR-Mike Runs Marathons, you can save 10% off your next purchase. So this next section is what I call the hot seat. These are questions that I ask everybody that I interview. They're just some quick, rapid fire questions. Don't think too hard. I'll, answer them based off whatever comes top of mind. And I'm actually very interested in the answers we have for some of these. And I actually don't know what this first answer would be, but trail or road?
Man, if you had asked me this 6 weeks ago, it would have been emphatically road. I had only run trail one time before that. It was for a Believe in the Run event for our winter grit party, and it was it was sort of like a backyard ultra sort of thing. They had like a 4-mile loop, and you just ran it as many times you could. I think I ran 14 miles on trails, having never run them before. The next day, my posterior chain was on fire. It hurt so bad. You know what? I'm still going to say road just because I'm still so new in the trails. But if we were to be doing this interview next year, it might be different. We'll see. There is something liberating about being out. 2 hours on the trails goes by so fast, mentally, compared to 2 hours on the road. And I've done both. I've done 2 hours out in the trails, and I've done 2 hours on the road very recently, and it's just a completely different animal.
Yeah, no, same here. I mean, I don't trail run anymore because I have a tendency of falling a lot when I trail run. But when I did, I would specifically go out into trails in Delaware and Pennsylvania and just be out there for 2, 3, sometimes 4 hours at a time. And when it would be done, I'd be like, oh, I didn't know how much time passed. This was a lot of fun.
I'll load maps onto my Garmin or routes onto my Garmin in the trails. And sure, a 10-mile run on the trails might take me 30 or 40 minutes longer because obviously you get the inclines and you get the different terrain that you're trying to navigate. And I'm actually eating snacks as opposed to just taking gels on the road. I'm eating my chewy granola bars. But no, it's just such a different experience, and I'm really starting to take to it. So we'll
I'm gonna check in with you come the summertime and see how you feel.
Yeah, that'll be different. Like I said, May is the 50K, and then
I'll check in with you in June and see how you feel.
Yeah.
I can't wait to hear this one. What is your favorite running shoe brand right now?
That's tough. I mean, top to bottom, it's really, really hard to fault Asics. Mm-hmm. Asics really just is not putting out bad shoes right now, all the way down from like Nova Blast to Super Blast 2 is still to this day. Yes. I ran Chicago in the Super Blast 2. I ran Wilmington in the original Super Blast. It's still to this day my favorite shoe, my long run go-to shoe. I haven't run in the Mega Blast or Sonic Blast yet. I am trying to get my hands on a pair of those. Everyone raves about them. But even the Meta Speed series, like in terms of from a bigger runner perspective, like I did really well with the Meta Speed Sky. I ran the Cherry Blossom 10 miler in the Meta Speeds. Overall, it's also tough because I'm really liking I do really like a lot of what New Balance does, especially their race day shoes, which are a little less aggressive and therefore a little more accommodating to bigger or slower runners. But yeah, from a top to bottom perspective, and we are in somewhat of a golden age of running right now where there are so few misses these days. Yeah. There are so few, like some people, if you're brand agnostic, you can put together an absolutely killer lineup top to bottom. You can mix and match because there are some shoes that won't mesh necessarily well with you in one brand, but another similar model will in another brand, and so you can create an absolutely killer lineup these days.
Now, I think you hinted at this earlier, but early alarm or late run?
I'm an early run person. I did one night run actually just this past Saturday, and of course it ends up being one of the best runs I've had in a long time. It was the second half of a double after I had to cut an earlier run short. But yeah, I'm just so much more. I don't like running when I have like the stress of the day on my weight and shoulders. A lot of people use running to like alleviate stress. I do it preemptively to like start my day with a clean slate of, hey, we're gonna start from a good mental standpoint. For me, I don't like having the stress of the day on me. I don't like having food in my stomach. So yeah, I'm an early morning guy.
I'm more power to people who run in the morning. I just can't get up. I'm either a middle day runner or I tend to now be a very late night runner.
In the winters, I do transition to sometimes more. I do work from home, so I'll go out over my lunch a
Mhm.
lot of times and run when it's a little bit warmer, the sun's out and stuff like that. But come summer, or come spring and summer and fall, I'm always early.
What is your favorite post marathon meal?
I like a good burger. It just is the perfect blend of, you get the carbs from the fries and
And the protein?
and you get the protein from the burger, and the carbs from the bun. Yeah, it's so well balanced. You get the fat from the burger and the cheese and all the top bacon that you get on there. That's what I had after Chicago. Actually, was I had a nice burger. I did. I ordered from the hotel restaurant. I went down and picked it up and brought it up to my room,
Nice.
and just sat on the bed and crushed a huge burger.
That sounds perfect. I love that. Music, podcasts, or silence on your easy runs?
Easy runs is podcasts. If I listen to music, I get too amped and all of
Mhm.
a sudden my pace slowly creeps up. But yeah, so easy runs is podcasts. And it's actually beneficial when I know a lot of the people on the podcasts I listen to know them personally, where all of a sudden it's like, oh, I like it's like listening to friends, so it makes it easy.
What is the one piece of running gear that you can't live without and you can't say your shoes?
I love some people don't. I love my running watch.
Mhm.
I'm a data guy. I love it. Now, when I am running, I try to avoid focusing on it because
Yeah.
I am trying to avoid, like, I'll check in on my heart rate, I'll check in on pace just to make sure, especially in workout. But like for nailing workouts and things like that, when I am incorporating speed work, and tempos into my training, the fact that I can set the intervals
Yeah.
easily and set my workouts. Also, now that I'm running trails, the mapping features are
Oh,
super helpful.
yeah.
I just upgraded actually from the Coros Pace 3 to the Nomad, which has a much larger
Mhm.
screen, and the mapping is great and the battery life is incredible. So yeah, so my Coros is, I sleep in it, I wear it. The only time I'm not wearing it is when I'm in the shower. So
I'm the same exact way. I cannot tell you when I would be trail running how the I wouldn't be able to trail run if I didn't have the mapping
I
feature. They would find me dead
yeah,
somewhere.
I am very directionally gifted. Like I can find my way places very easily, but out on the trails, like I just, because I partially kind of am living kind of, I'm in the zone a little bit, and all of a sudden, but like luckily with having the mapping feature and I can design routes, it warns you about turns, and
Yeah.
yeah.
And when you go too far and you're
Yep.
like, "Oh,
Yep.
crap, I got
I
back."
did. I actually did my most recent trail run. It was the first trail run after I got the Nomad. I hadn't changed a lot of my, I had forgot to go in and change a lot of my navigation settings that I had on the Pace 3. So it didn't warn me that I was off route until I was like almost half a mile off. So I had to backtrack so I added an extra mile to my 11-mile run by having to backtrack a whole other half mile. So
Man. So now I guess I want to know what this is now because you're starting to get into trail races, but do you have a dream race?
it's sort of hanging up behind you. I'd love to run Boston.
Mm,
I'm from New England. I was born and raised in New Hampshire. So obviously the lore of the Boston Marathon, even when I wasn't a runner and into fitness, it still obviously has the cachet
yeah.
all around New England and all over the running community. I would love to run it. Even if I just run it once, I just want to be able to say I did it. And it's sort of a cop out answer because that's everyone's kind of like, oh, I want to run Boston because it's so hard and so elite to do. And it's, for me, it's not a hometown race because I'm not from Boston, but I mean, when you say New Hampshire, everyone's like, oh, so basically Boston. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. So for me, it's, I would like to run Boston.
Now, if you could pick anyone to run Boston with, who would it be?
Man, that's tough.
Be friend, family, celebrity, whoever, living or dead.
Well, and one of my answers in a different podcast interview was who would you want to bring to a pasta dinner as your
Oh,
plus
is this on
one
the
who's a
runs?
runner? This was on the runs,
I
yeah.
love them.
Yeah. And so my interview there, so my answer for who I'd want to be on run with is going to be the same for this. I'd love to run it with Kira D'Amato because I feel like she would help. She's so funny,
Mm-hmm.
just like naturally. She's just a naturally funny person. And I feel like I could turn to her for some laughs during for me what's going to be a 4+ hour marathon. Now for her, she would be going at quite a slow pace for her. But yeah, if I could have someone there who could keep me in the zone mentally and in humor and being funny, I think will help do that.
I just finished her audiobook, and
Yeah,
yeah, I agree. Hysterical.
I did that on the way out and back to Chicago. I had the audiobook and I listened to that.
Yeah, my wife and I went to go visit her family over the holidays, and I got the book right before we left, and we listened to it like the whole way there, and then we finished about halfway back on the way home. And she was like, in my wife is, like I said, not a runner, and she was like engrossed. She was like, "And what's going to happen? What happens next?
Yeah.
Did
Well,
she
and
get?"
yeah, and Kira and I, she a few years ago, she actually followed me on Instagram. And so she and I chat from time to time on Instagram about stuff. And I told her, because obviously now we both now been interviewed for On the
Yeah.
Run, so we're both part of the pod fam, and we were talking about stuff. And I actually, when I was in Chicago, I was doing a shakeout run with New Balance and Fleet Feet for with Meb. And we were running along the waterfront, and I see these two people come flying up on us, not from behind, but like towards us. And I look really quickly, and it was Kira and Clayton Young running together on the
No
waterfront. So
way.
I gave him a loud shout out. I'm like, "Go Kira and Clayton!" And then I pulled up our Strava maps and I sent a screenshot to Kira. I'm like, "If you heard someone yell your name right here," and I circled it for her, yeah, that was me.
That is.
And then I saw Clayton either later that night or the following night because I went to the Laura Green comedy show and Clayton was one of her guests there. So I actually saw him later, and I talked to him about giving him the shout out on the run
Oh,
too.
that's funny. It's funny. Meb actually gave me my medal at New York last year. It
Yeah,
was the most surreal experience of my life. I crossed the finish line and I turned to my left, and he crosses the finish line too with with his charity, and I literally just stood there and went, "Are you fucking kidding me right now?"
yeah,
Like I went up to him, I was like, "I don't want to bother you. I just want to let you know that I'm such a fan. I love your book." And he was like, "Well, let's go get medals." And he gave me, I put my medal over I like recorded. I was like, "You guys are not going to fucking believe this." And I was just like, "This is one of the greatest days of my
yeah,
life." Like I
yeah.
was not, it
I
was
got to
awesome.
do. He was at the run. I got to do a meet and greet. I got a signed copy of his book. Got to chat with him for like. He was also at the Believe in the Run shakeout, so I got to see him there as well
Mm.
too. So yeah, so he was great. I read when I got back from Chicago. That was the first book that I read when I got back.
But yeah, such a good book. I love
Yep.
it so much. Now, this next question that I have is one that I call the motivation library. If you could pick one quote, a mantra, or a line that gets you through the tough miles, what would that be?
And I've said this to myself on runs where I feel like quitting or early on a run where I'm not feeling it, and I just say to myself, you have never once regretted a run.
Mm,
I and that gets me through. I have powered through some rainy runs, snowy runs where I'm got side stitches, runs where I'm just not feeling great, runs where it's just hard that day. I've gotten through runs with just saying you have never and I there have been very few instances where I've actually cut a run short, and it's usually because something is actually like hurting,
mhm.
not because I'm not motivated or it's just a not my day. But repeating that to myself that I've never once regretted a run, and I that can get me through.
No, I agree with you on that so much. That one hits deep. I like that one a lot. Now I want to jump to May, where you have your first 50K, right? You see the finish line. Your body feels beaten up beyond belief, right? Because you've never done this distance before. What song is blasting through your headphones as you cross that finish line?
Man, I'm gonna end up circling back to my On the Runs interview when they put together the playlist for their podcast guests, and it's going to be Andrew WK, Party Hard,
Okay.
because that song has just the absolute perfect rhythm and cadence where if I want to be running like up tempo, and I know I'm going to want to be running up tempo and sprinting to that finish line. That is a perfect finish line song because it has just consistent rhythm the entire song. There's like no break. It's about 2.5 minutes long of just pure energy. And at the end of the day, I know when I'm crossing that finish line, I'm going to go that night and I'm going to party hard. So that's going to be my motivating song to get me across the finish line.
I love that. I love that. No, it's always good to have those songs that, don't just stay with you and you cross the finish line, but then they just like, they go further and they carry you on past the finish line. So
yeah, and when that comes on, and that's partly why I only listen to music when I'm doing workouts or races, just because music plays such a big role in. It's funny, like, and I don't. Well, there is there are studies on the psychological impact of music and performance in strength training and running. But like, I will go out and if I run, let's say I'm running a 9-minute pace. If I'm running a 9-minute pace listening to a podcast, my heart rate will be higher than when I'm running 9 minutes listening to music. There's just something about the music that makes it easier psychologically, which obviously then has an impact on your like your heart rate. It's the craziest thing.
I'm gonna have to read this up. I had no idea about that.
Yeah, that's how it impacts me. So that's all anecdotal. But yeah, there are a lot of studies out there about the performance benefits of music.
Awesome. Well, no, I love running the music. I don't know. Herm was telling me about how you can't have headphones in the JFK 50.
JFK, I don't think it's funny. I was actually talking to Herms about doing JFK sometime in the future, and the one limiting thing for me would be being out there for 10 to 12 hours with no music.
Yeah, that's what I said. Same thing to him. I said, I don't know if I could do that. Being alone with my thoughts for that many hours, I don't know.
If I ever move beyond the 50K distance, I will need to do something that allows headphones. So
yes, agreed.
Yep.
I mean, I need it for my marathons.
Yeah, no, I didn't have my music on for maybe the first half of Chicago. And then I ended up turning it on when I was in the pain cave and like thinking about quitting.
Mm-hmm.
And it did help get me through. So even though there are some areas where I use shocks and I couldn't even really hear my headphones through the crowds. But
same, yeah. So Chad, those are actually all the questions that I had for you today. I really want to thank you so much for sharing not just your story, but about what connects us as runners and how to feel and build a community within running so that you can feel like you belong in the sport. And what stands out the most to me is not just what you've accomplished. It's the way that you've shown people that running belongs to everyone, regardless of the finish time, their body type, their background, whatever it is, whatever their story is. Everyone has some way of connecting and becoming a part of this community. And that as long as you maintain that strong consistency of showing up and continuing to put one foot in front of the other, you'll make that progress that you want to make. And that visibility matters more than people realize. If you're listening, you don't already follow him. His username is the Clydesdale Runner, all one word. So make sure you go ahead and check him out, and make sure to also check him out, Believe in the Run. It is a fantastic website, in case you haven't heard about it, that offers insanely detailed reviews of running shoes for everyone. His journey is a reminder that you don't need permission to start, and you don't need to look like anyone else to be able to belong in this sport. So thank you so much, Chad. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Mike.
Hey, everybody. Before I sign off from today's episode of At Your Own Pace, I wanted to just quickly shout out a quick deal for all of you. Our friends over at Shocks are currently running a 20% off sale on their brand new Open Dots 1 headphones. They are the Shocks headphones that I recommend for everyone in terms of the way that they fit and the sound quality that they have. I've used them for about 5 marathons now, and I was actually one of the early testers for the product before it was released. If you've been looking for open-ear headphones that still let you hear the world around you on your runs, these are definitely something that you would want to check out. And because you're part of this community, you can save an additional $5 off of the current sale by using the code Mike Runs Marathons at checkout. So make sure you head over to Shocks, grab those Open Dots headphones. They've actually just released a new color for International Women's Day. And don't forget to use the code Mike Runs Marathons to stack that extra discount. Again, I want to thank Chad for joining us today. It was a pleasure to speak with him about his running journey, what got him started in into running. Our stories are very similar in terms of getting started with our fitness and trying to become healthier, and going from his first 5K all the way up to his first marathon in 15 months is just an incredible story. And the way that he shows up for runners that have specific questions that might not be answered by some people within this running community is something that I think is so powerful and so inspiring. Like I said, again, if you are looking for a great pair of shoes and you don't know where to start when it comes to looking for the right reviewer or the right website to find the right review on, Believe in the Run is a fantastic website that I use myself. And having Chad on here is just an honor to be able to speak with him about not just his background as a runner, but also how he utilizes his knowledge to be able to provide support to runners everywhere in the world. So again, thank you so much, Chad. But I want to thank all of you again for tuning in to At Your Own Pace. Whether you're walking, jogging, racing, or just dreaming about getting started with your running journey, I want you to remember that you belong here at every pace. So until next time, keep running your story 1 mile at a time, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.